Okay, I think we'll start now. Okay, the next lecture is about censorship, and the title is, as you can see, the worst part of censorship is XXX. I thought it has something to do with porn, but nope. Okay, the lecture is held by Sebastian Wolfgarten. He's currently working at T-Mobile and is there responsible for network security. So he's the right guy to hold this lecture. Yeah, it's about content filtering. I see there are a number of people coming in. Okay, it's about content filtering on a large-scale basis in the usual suspect countries and especially China. Okay, I'll just hand over to him. Give a warm welcome applause to Sebastian.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. I know it's very early already, but you're here, so thanks for that. I was up until 3 o'clock working on this presentation, so I know what it's like being up late. Basically, my presentation is called, or actually the subtitle says it all, basically investigating large-scale internet content filtering. What this means is just another word of saying we're looking at internet censorship. That was something, the reason why I'm doing this talk is because I had to write a master's thesis and I needed a topic, and so I came up with this topic. And my professor said, oh no, we can't say censorship because my original idea was to call this thing how to circumvent the Great Firewall of China. But then my professor said, oh no, we can't do this because we have so many Chinese students and the Chinese embassy is just down the road and we don't want to have trouble. So I said, okay, let's call this investigating large-scale internet content filtering, and which is apparently the same, but it has a better title. And it's funny that people think that the X's actually stand for something. Yesterday a guy said, okay, the X's must stand for Google, don't they? Or now he said it should stand for porn, but it doesn't stand for anything. I just like the title because it's a bit of a pun, a play on words, because basically the worst part of the censorship is the censorship itself, because information wants to be free. But let's start with the talk and stop this boring stuff. Okay, basically we have a small preface where I'm just going to tell you something about my motivation, how this all started. Then we're going to take a look at the filtering techniques that you can employ as an adversary. Here in this talk, in large scale, I don't mean companies or something, I mean countries. So we're going to take a look at the different layers that you can use and the different techniques that you can use to do filtering on a large scale in any country. And then we're going to take a very nice but brief look at the current situation in the People's Republic of China, where I rented a server with a bit of hassle, but I rented a server a couple of months ago in China and I did all my experiments from there. And the last thing is that I'm going to show you how to circumvent the filtering in China. Okay, so we start with the actual presentation. Well, who the fuck are you? Basically, I'm just, as Dan Kaminsky said yesterday, just a random stranger. Prior to working with the network security group of T-Mobile, I used to do penetration testing with Ernst & Young for 4 years. And yes, as I said before, I have a master's degree in security and forensic computing from Dublin City University. And the next slide might be a bit strange, but I thought it's something worth taking into this presentation. Maybe some people in this room are interested in getting certificated as, or actually getting a degree in IT security. And so I thought maybe I put a little ad in there, and I swear I'm not paid by the university to say this, but if you're interested in studying IT security and if you have a spare year, then I can really recommend this course. It's in Dublin, it's in Ireland, it involves a lot of drinking, but it also involves a lot of hacking. So we did a lot of biometric security, exploit coding, subverting the Linux kernel, we coded face recognition system, we coded cryptography stuff, so there's a lot of stuff in there, and I think the course is pretty unique, and 90% of all the fees are paid by the European Union, so it's relatively cheap to do, and I can really recommend this. So if you check out DCU's website, then I'm sure you find something interesting. The reason why I'm telling you this is because this has to do with the motivation for my talk. Okay, so basically the motivation was my Chinese roommate, because I was living on campus at DCU, and my Chinese roommate was basically, he had a degree, he had a PhD degree in computer science, he was a Chinese guy, and he was working in the university as basically a teacher. So one day we were chatting away and he was saying, yeah, well, you know, the internet in China becomes more and more active and more people using it and so on. I was like, yeah, well, you know, internet in China is not really free, the information are not really free as they want to be, you know, they are censored. And although his English was very good, I have to say, he had no idea what the word censorship or to censor something means. I had a hard time explaining to him that the information he sees are not the information that are available. So he was totally unaware of the word to censor something. So I was like, okay, if somebody that has got a PhD degree in computer science is unaware, or maybe wants to be unaware of a word called to censor, then maybe other people don't know that the internet is censored. So I was interested in the idea of finding out how the actual filtering works in China, but also how to circumvent it. Obviously, there's always an element of curiosity. I mean, this is always to do with hacking or with technology, I think. And when you consider the recent events, many of you have probably heard that the Russian website, all of MP3 was blocked in Denmark. Maybe if we have any people from Denmark in the room, then they can tell us about this. Basically, we've seen more and more, let's say, attempts by the government to prevent people from accessing certain sites. We have seen this in Germany, and I'm going to show you an example later on where there was a so-called blocking order, or in very formal German, that would be the Sperrungsverfügung, to block certain Nazi-related website. So basically, I thought, okay, this is an area where we need some research, and so I decided to work on this. But now let's really start with this stuff. Okay, so do you have a question? Okay, sorry, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, so we have to take a look at the filtering techniques. Basically, from a technology point of view, you can do filtering at two levels. You can do filtering at what's called the network layer, and you can do it at the application layer. When you take a look at the network layer, you can usually do filtering at what's called layer 3 and layer 4. You're all aware of the OC models and so forth, so I don't really need to explain this too much. But basically what you can do is you can do filtering on the application level. And on the application level, you can do stuff like proxies. You can filter at the proxy level. You can do a technique called deep packet inspection, which we're going to see later on. And you can do DNS manipulations, which seems to be the preferred way of doing large-scale internet filtering at the moment. Okay. So if we take a look at the OC model, and I'm, as I said, very aware of I'm sure you're all very aware of this graph. Basically, you can filter. If you take a look, you can filter at this level, the application layer, but you can also filter at layer 3 and layer 4. And in Cisco syntax, for instance, these could be rules that you can use to block access to certain IP addresses at central network elements. Okay, so there's nothing special about this graph. It's just an illustration. Okay, so how does this work when you when you have a proxy server? Well, it's very simple. In a proxy server, you have a user that requests, when we consider the HTTP protocol, of course, then you have a user that uses a proxy server to connect to tries to connect to a website, and that request is actually forwarded to a central or transparent even proxy server. The proxy server takes that request, forwards it onto the actual website if the access control list on the proxy server allows the user to access the website. So basically, what you can do on the central proxy server, you can actually say you can actually set up access control lists just like you would do in your corporate environment, and the user is unable to access a certain site if the access control list does not allow this. Okay. Then what you can do is a technique that's called deep packet inspection. Deep packet inspection is actually a technology that comes from intrusion detection and intrusion prevention. So basically from network security. But you can also use this technology in the context of internet filtering. Because what you do is basically when the user sends some arbitrary data packet, you as the adversary can look into the packet and not only analyze its headers but also analyze its payload, so the content. So based on that content, you can use entropy analysis, you can do pattern matching and so forth to prevent users from accessing certain targets. Okay, and I have 4 demos, and one of the demos will actually illustrate this problem. you can do DNS manipulations. This is a scheme of how DNS works. Very briefly, it's not quite correct, but just to give you an introduction how it works. And you can basically do these types of filtering. You can actually refuse to resolve a certain name. You can actually deny that the existence of a certain domain. You can hijack a certain domain, so that means that, for instance, Google does not resolve to the real IP address, but to any arbitrary IP address that you define. And maybe if the user tries to access google.com, then he will be given a fake IP address, and if he connects to that IP address, he will be redirected to a different website saying, okay, you're not allowed to access this and this domain. You can do name invalidation, which I'm going to show you very shortly, and you can do what you can basically be silent when somebody answers or actually requests a website from you. So as I'm sure you're all aware of the way DNS works, I'm going to show you a little example. Here it is. And basically what this should illustrate is basically the blocking order or the Sperrungsverfügung in my area where I'm coming from. I'm actually from North Rhine-Westphalia. So basically, I think it was in 2001 when all the providers in North Rhine-Westphalia were actually forced to block access to certain Nazi-related websites. And they did this actually by just doing DNS manipulation. Okay, so one of the websites is actually Stormfront.org, which is a Nazi-related website. And so I have a little flash demo here, which I'm going to show you now. This is the first of 4 demos. So now what we can see is I'm trying to do a host lookup, DNS lookup of the domain stormfront.org. So I'm typing in host www.stormfront.org, and we will see that I get an IP address back because I'm not using a North Rhine-Westphalia based provider. Now if I do the same request with a DNS server that is actually located in North Rhine-Westphalia, you will see that the DNS answer is manipulated in such a way as you can see stormfront.org has address 127,001. Okay, so this is a very, very easy way, but to be honest, it's still effective as we speak. So in the area of North Rhine-Westphalia, you will not be able to access this website simply because they have changed their DNS servers in such a way that this IP address is actually invalidated. Okay, so obviously this is a very easy way to circumvent because you can simply just use other DNS servers. Okay, this is not affected, but I think this is a very preferred way of using or of performing content filtering at the moment, because I think A, it's relatively easy to implement, and B, that's something even the politicians can understand. So if you tell them, oh, we got this great telephone book of the internet and we just rip out one page, they will easily understand probably better than if you say, we're going to employ IP filtering at some central router element. Okay, so they can probably understand that if you erase these elements or these answers from the DNS system, that's probably the best thing to do, or the easiest thing to do. Okay, so yeah. I don't want to access this website, but if some people want to, then they have to use different DNS servers, I guess. Okay, so if we go on. Okay, so as you can see, that was the first occurrence of DNS or of internet filtering in Germany at all. So it was only in North Rhine-Westphalia, and I think other states in Germany are not affected. But for instance, the scandal with all of mp3.com in Denmark, for instance, I think it's implemented in the exact